Thank you for this opportunity to talk about our school bond program. On Tuesday, May the 8th, there will be a $250 million school bond referendum on the ballot. Our communications department has prepared a video that I think speaks well to what the bond will provide.
Here in Gaston County, we want great schools for our children. Schools that are safe with modern classrooms where effective teaching and learning takes place every day. Unfortunately, our schools are at a critical crossroads, and we must decide now what kind of schools we want for the future. On Tuesday, May 8th, the citizens of Gaston County will have the opportunity to vote on a $250 million school bond referendum. If approved, we will be able to build new schools, add classroom buildings, expand libraries and cafeterias, and make critical repairs and renovations. $110 million will be used to build a new elementary school and 2 new middle schools, and $25 million will go toward classroom additions and the expansion and renovation of libraries and cafeterias. The largest portion, $115 million, will address the most critical repairs and renovations needed at our schools. Schools in every township across the county will receive funds for necessary repairs in areas such as electrical, lighting and life safety, heating, ventilation and air conditioning, water, sewer and gas lines, doors and windows, roof replacement, and parking lot and driveway improvements. It is important to point out that a majority of our schools in our community are more than 40 years old, and repairs are desperately needed right now. Plus, as the Charlotte region continues to grow, so will Gaston County, and we will need more classroom space to accommodate students and alleviate overcrowding. That's why the school bond referendum on Tuesday, May 8th is so important. Your vote will have a direct effect on the future of our schools and the quality of education that our children receive right here in Gaston County.
As you begin to think about a bond issue, we know that there are several questions that come to mind. So we've tried to identify the top 5 questions. First, what are the school bonds for? The first amount of money is $110 million for new school construction. That will construct 3 schools. A new elementary school in the southeast Gastonia area, which has been identified as a high-growth area. A new middle school that the Board of Education has committed to replacing one of our old middle schools. People ask, why have these not been named? We know that the funding for this bond issue will come over a 7-year period. And the commitment has been to first fund the new middle school in Belmont. So these other 2 schools will be utilized to identify where the greatest need is when the funding becomes available. As for the new middle school in Belmont, the land has already been purchased and the architect is underway with the design. So we hope that upon passing the bonds in May, it will allow us to bid and begin construction of the schools. The second area of money is $25 million for school additions. This will allow for classroom additions that will help us to address the K-3 legislation that reduces class size. It will also help us fund the choice program that the Board of Education has proposed for the 2019-2020 school year. If you're going to do classroom additions, you will need to look at your media centers and your cafeterias and see whether they need to be expanded or renovated to meet the additional capacity that has been added with the classroom additions. The final part of the money is $115 million, and it represents the largest portion of the school bonds, and it funds something for every township in the county, but it will be addressing our most critical needs. And those needs begin with electrical and lighting. Many of you have replaced T lighting in your homes to reflect the new codes and the new opportunities for energy efficiency. We are no different. Life safety is something that is always important for the school system, and we have cameras intercom, security, fire alarms throughout these buildings that need to be constantly updated and improved. And that is obviously a critical need. Like most of our country, our infrastructure is aging. So when you talk about water, gas, and sewer lines, we are no different. We had a considerable amount of growth after World War II, and those facilities are worn, and the things that support them are worn and need to be replacing. Plumbing goes right along with that and the need to keep it current. Roof replacement is critical. When you have 5 million square feet of buildings, you have 5 million square feet of roof to deal with. And so we have to continually replacing our roofs, and we use a third-party independent consultant who does a roofing program, provides the design, and helps with the bidding. And all of our projects are bid competitively, but roof replacement is expensive. Our HVAC, which is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, the age of those mirrors the age of our buildings. And a lot of our buildings were retrofitted with air conditioning, and so the need to update that is continual. Doors and windows wear out, and also with the energy rating need to be worked. If you've been to any of our campuses, you've seen the need for parking lots and driveways. We have a lot of asphalt around this community, and it needs repair. Our gym floors and lighting in the gym is very important to look at. That lighting also includes for our auditoriums. We need to be looking at those facilities and doing those repairs. We have a number of structural repairs that have been identified, and these have been dealt with on an emergency basis, but we need to be more proactive in dealing with those. And in environmental work, we know that there are new codes that need to be adhered to. And finally, with ADA compliance, we have a number of restrooms and elevators that need additional upgrading that we have not been able to do. So that really covers the breakdown of the $115 million, but we know that folks want to know how much will come to my town. And so by township, these numbers represent the amount estimated to be spent. $5.8 million in Cherryville, $12.1 in Crowder's Mountain, $14.5 in Dallas, $38.7 million in Gastonia, $21.6 million in Riverbend, and $20.3 million in South Point. If you add these numbers up, it's just short of the $115 million. We have a number of support facilities that approximately $2 million is allocated to support. To make it clear for folks as they review this and try and understand what will be going on, we have listed on sheets each of the townships and the schools that feed into those townships and place checks in the respective columns for work. And you will see that every school has a check for life safety, because we know that is the most critical thing to be addressing. So when you look, that is the culmination of the $250 million. This map shows the county, and all of the dots represented there are our schools. And if you were to count them, you would see 54 dots representing the schools that we have. We have a 55th school, the virtual school. And when you take the $115 million that we just reviewed, you would see that of those 54 dots, 49 of them will receive some form of work as part of the $115 million. So you say, well, if you have 55 schools and there are only 49 that are going to receive work, what happened to those other schools? Well, first, the virtual school is a virtual school. It does not have a physical campus. Second, Gaston Early College is a tenant with Gaston College, and so they maintain that facility. And then we have 3 new schools, Stuart W. Kramer, Pleasant Ridge Elementary, and Stanley Middle, and they're in a condition that we do not feel they needed work. And the final school would be Belmont Middle, which we know is going to be replaced. So that breaks down the 6 schools that are not receiving work out of the $115 million. So the question is, why $250 million? Well, through the years, we've had a number of studies done. The Board of Education hired an independent architect to come in and selected 13 facilities throughout the entire county as representatives of the different buildings that we have. And of those 13 schools, when you take the analysis that was done on those and extrapolate it across the whole district, the number exceeded $700 million in needs. We're also required by the state of North Carolina to do a 5-year study on our physical capacity and condition. Those ratings are submitted to the state, and they apply formulas to it and provide a number. And again, it was over $600 million of needs. So everyone has accepted that we have at least $650 million of needs, and so no one wants to write a check for $650 million. $250 is a manageable amount. It can be expended in a orderly fashion over 7 to 10 years, and it is manageable for the county to handle the funding of. So that's where the $250 million comes from. It is contemplated that additional bond issues would follow these to make up the remainder of the funds. So then the question becomes, well, why do you need school bonds? Why aren't we paying for this in general operating funds? Well, capital funds have always been funded differently, and traditionally, school bonds are how Gaston County has chosen to fund new schools, additions, renovations, and repairs. It allows you to spread the payment out over a number of years instead of trying to come up with funds in one lump sum. This is a very common funding mechanism for public entities, be they school systems, county governments, hospitals. They all tend to use bond funding to perform capital projects. So why do we need the bonds? As the video talked about, our aging facilities. We have over 40% of our buildings greater than 50% in age, but what's even 50 years in age. But what's even more important is 60% of our buildings are greater than 40 years in age. So we need to begin repairs and renovations now. But at the same time, we know our community is continuing to grow. But when you think about our facilities, we are taking care of our buildings, but look at the condition they are in. They're made very presentable and they are clean, but they still need to be updated. This chart provides you a breakdown of the various sizes and ages of buildings by township. And the purpose here was to try and explain how the allocation of the $115 million was done, because you see the percentage of square feet that is in each community. But further, when we talk about why we need bonds and renovation and repairs, look at the condition of these bathrooms. It is clean, it is maintained, but the age and the accessibility of it is still challenging. The electrical needs to be updated for safety purposes. Our HVAC needs continually to be updated because life safety is part of it, but also just the general aging. Systems last between 15 and 30 years, and we have those aging out every year. We talked about paving earlier. A number of our parking lots are so cracked up and broken up that they look like gravel lots. These pictures are just representative of what some of our parking lots look like. We talk about structural repairs. This loading dock shows some of the repairs that are needed, and lighting. Many of you understand the difficulties in lighting and updating, and these picture just represents that. Roof replacement is one that we always get a lot of questions, but when you look at this picture, I think it answers a lot. In the foreground there, you can see a large expanse of roof, and those dark spots are where that roof is failing. It needs to be repaired, but preferably replaced. In the background, you see additional gray on that. That is roofing. This is a middle school that approaches 180,000 square feet. So to roof that is an expensive project. We have one of our high schools that we know needs to be roofed, and our independent consultant has provided an estimate that says it will cost between $1.2 and $1.8 million to do that roof. That's the kind of dollars that we're talking about expending in capital. At the same time, we know that we will continue to grow as a community. When you look, since 2000, there have been over 4,500 single-family, mixed-use, and multifamily residential units approved. In addition to that, there are almost 10,000 proposed units to be spread throughout the southeast region. In a recent presentation to the county commissioners, their staff provided them an estimate based on the 2016 census tract that showed in this highlighted green area that over a third of the county resides in that area. So as this growth continues, we need to be prepared for that. So then the obvious question is, how will we pay for the school bonds? Well, also on the ballot will be a quarter-cent sales tax. It is a separate issue with its own line to be voted on. One of the reasons to look at this is it takes the burden away from property taxes and spreads it. It has been estimated by professionals that over 30% of sales tax are collected from folks who are not residents of Gaston County. This will further spread the burden of paying for school bonds. Also, a quarter-cent sales tax is believed to generate $6 million per year. This will allow for an orderly planning of capital, and it allows for bond debt to be paid off. And when you think about what 1 penny quarter-cent sales tax means, we try to equate it to a cup of coffee. If you're spending $4 on a cup of coffee, it means you're going to spend $4.01, because that's the effect of a quarter-cent sales tax. $4 equals 1 cent. Now, a question I've asked a lot is, what about the lottery money? Well, lottery money does a lot of things to support public education, but the majority of that funding is done at the state level. It is used for teaching positions, pre-K programs, and that funding is determined by the state at their level. The only money that comes to Gaston County comes to the county and its finance office, and it is averaged somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. That is the total amount that we receive each year. So when you see the bond or the lottery campaign talking about over $80 or $90 million since the inception 12 years ago of the lottery, that money only comes in a small portion to Gaston County. So why are the school bonds so important? I think the easiest way to answer that question is to look at the school bonds from 2007. And to start with, let's recognize that the bond money from 2007 touched 44 schools. Now, some of those projects were as small as $15,000 or $20,000, and some of them were as large as $600,000, $700,000, because we had over $8 million of savings in new construction that was allocated out. It allowed us to do some small paving projects or to do some structural repairs, but it did touch 44 schools. But the more significant projects that people recognize began at Hunter Huss. Over $10 million of bond money was utilized at Hunter Huss, total HVAC replacement, and a total renovation of the media center. And this picture is from the Hunter Huss Media Center. We've had community meetings there, board meetings there. It is a state-of-the-art facility, and we are very proud of Hunter Huss. But recognize there are still things to do at Hunter Huss. The initial estimate for dollars in Hunter Huss was over $17 million, and we've only spent 10. So they still have needs at Hunter Huss. Also in the 2007 bonds, it was contemplated to develop a new elementary school in the Union Road area. When the Hope Lutheran School closed, the Board of Education acquired that building, and it is now the location of our Hawks Nest STEAM Academy. This was our first county-wide elementary magnet, and it continues to perform well, and it was a good use of the taxpayers' dollars to buy an existing facility and use it as an elementary school. Many of you are familiar with Stuart W. Kramer High School. This is a state-of-the-art comprehensive high school. The commission that was part of approving those bonds said in developing this high school, they wanted it to be a full high school. In the past, our community had said, we will build the building and all the support facilities, such as baseball, softball, football, track, would be through fundraising done by the community. With Stuart W. Kramer, they said, we do not want to do that with the current state of building codes and what it requires. We want it to be a turnkey project. The initial budget for Stuart W. Kramer High School was $68 million. The school was built for just under $60 million. And in that $60 million, there was $1 million of sewer and infrastructure work and a $2 million road. So the actual building cost was less than $135 a square foot to build a state-of-the-art high school. Also with 2007 bonds, we were able to construct the Pleasant Ridge Elementary, which is a consolidation of 3 schools in West Gastonia. That school opened this August, and it is state-of-the-art and has met with a lot of acclaim from the design community and the construction community. And just this spring, we've been able to open the Stanley Middle School. You'll recall the Stanley Middle School is a replacement of the Stanley High School that became the Stanley Junior High that was then functioning as the Stanley Middle School. And as one of the students described, this school is everything I could hope for. And it's what our children appreciate, and it is a great facility that will serve this community for many years to come. So school bonds are important. We want our students and teachers to have the best. We believe modern classrooms facilitate a modern education. We want our schools to be safe, and the new to school design shows safety is one of the first things thought of. And we want great schools for the future. Now, this has been a pretty quick presentation. We have made available on our website at the bottom a quick link that will take you to the school bonds, and it provides a lot of detailed information. There's a copy of this presentation, and you can just evaluate for yourself the bonds. But what I know above everything is that great schools equal great jobs. Great schools equal a great economy. Great schools equal great growth. And great schools equal a great place to live, work, play, and raise a family. But ultimately, who benefits from school bonds is our children, the most valuable asset that we have in our community. But all is part of supporting the entire community is what we do for our children. So I have great confidence that on Tuesday, May the 8th, just as Gaston County has historically given overwhelming approval to bond issues, that our community believes in our future, and on Tuesday, May the 8th, they will continue to support the vision of inspiring success and a lifetime of learning. Thank you for allowing me to describe the school bond program.